Welcome back to Black Girl Couch Reviews. I'm your host, Christina. We are back for another recap and review. It's been a minute for The Haunting of Hill House Season 1, Episode 4, The Twin Thing. So this episode, we focus more on Luke, who is the most adorable bottle glasses kid I've ever seen. Like, if I had a son, I just want him to be Luke. It's not happening because ain't no more kids coming out of this uterus, but he is so adorable. I want to adopt him. However, I wish I liked the adult version more than the kid version. This episode was directed by Mike Flanagan. He has done the entire series, so he is only one director on this one, which I think is pretty common, right? I think they have the same thing for Stranger Things. It was written by Scott Kozar, and he has done things such as The Machinist, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Amityville Horror, which we all are, for the most part. I think I've seen everything except The Machinist. I think I got halfway through that movie, and because it requires so much attention at the time that I was watching it, I was not ready to give that movie the attention it deserved. I should go back and watch that. I heard it was really good. I just saw Christian Bale looking skinny as hell, and it just threw me off. But I hear it's a really good movie. I just never could sit still long enough to enjoy it. This one, there's no ratings online for Netflix series, so I have no idea what the demographics are looking like. However, I gave this one a 7.2 out of 10. I liked it. I just didn't particularly enjoy it. It did what it was supposed to do. It's a lull in the storylines. The last 3 episodes have been pretty solid. This one, definitely not the strongest of the 4. It would be last. It's exactly where it's supposed to be in the story. However, it's just not, it did not pull me emotionally as much as some of the other characters have, despite me loving the kid version of Luke. Before we get into our recap, what's new this week, FBI got renewed for season 2. I'm so stinking happy. Criminal Minds this week was it was alright. It wasn't bad. I wish they would do something with Tara's storyline, but I do like what they're doing. I thought Rossi, in case this is just some small talk for Criminal Minds, if you happen to watch that show, I heard Rossi, not heard, but I hoped, I should say, Rossi was going to retire. Because I love the actor, and I get that he's not a part of the show, but they bloated the shit out of that cast. So it's hard to really focus on anyone in particular. And I just don't see enough of, I feel like we've gotten enough of Rossi the last few years that I don't necessarily think we need him on the show anymore. And especially since we added the hot Asian guy, which I like his character a lot, don't get me wrong. But it just feels like he's an unnecessary cast member, especially when you have things like chase scenes. It's like, what you out there in the field anyway for? Your grandpa ass need to be behind the tape, and I'm not saying anything about ageism, but come on now. You know Rossi would be retired or at least up in the office. He would not be up in the field. Definitely wouldn't leave the police station, so I don't see why we have to have him playing this role. Let me see. I have to get back into Chicago Med because I heard that Yaya character, forgot her, April and, Jesus, why am I having Ethan? They're kind of, their romance is sparking back up a little bit, so I'm feeling that. And he's like with another chick, because that's why I stopped watching, and I didn't like any of the other. Then I heard that they're gonna bring back Robin Charles, Dr. Charles's daughter. I'm like, why? She went crazy, saw the rats. They totally just shoehorned that storyline. Then he was in love. Now he's with this other chick. I don't know. I've not been doing a lot of Chicago Med because they got really sloppy with the soap opera aspect of it. And I really wasn't rooting for anybody. So I might get back into that show because I do like the storylines. But it's a lot of shows I have going that I don't get to on a daily basis. like New Amsterdam. I haven't gotten past the first episode of that season. I still haven't finished up Midnight Texas, so there's a lot of TV I have to catch up on. But that's where I've been at for the most part, except for I probably will be happier once I get done with CSI, because I'm in season 11 right? No, I'm in 13 right now. So yes, I actually went back and binged watched CSI because I just got into it, and I did New York, I did CSI Miami, but I was never really attached to the original series, the Las Vegas. I'm not sure if that's even the original series. But Las Vegas never really did it for me. I just got into William Peterson's character, Grissom. However, I wasn't like on his... He definitely was better than the other two. Like Lawrence Fishburne's character, I did not like Ray Langston at all. I just felt he was overly aggressive for no reason. And I got his backstory, and I liked his backstory. However, it just, I don't know. Then... If you've watched that, Tracy Ellis is in that as well. And then him and that Nick Haskell guy, and I didn't even think the one guy played a good villain. It did not work for me. And I don't like shows where we just very blatantly break the law, and then there seems to be very little consequence, and there's a lot of hypocrisy. I like the show. I like the cases, but I've been I think my favorite character is Greg, because he doesn't, and then I think my second favorite character is, not Hodges, John, what is his last name? Y'all know who I'm talking about, though. Yeah, so that's where, and until I actually get done with CSI, because I feel like I just need to watch that entire series, I probably won't be getting back to my other shows, or at least until I need a break from that. So that is where my TV news is at right now. Not too much else going on other than the fact that, oh yeah, the Umbrella Academy comes out. I cannot wait for that February, 12th on Netflix. I think I'm going to do that series. I'm pretty sure I am going to. What am I talking about? I think I'm going to do that series. So I was really hyped to see the trailer for that come out. So if you have not seen that, go see that. Plus the trailer for John Wick 3 that has Halle Berry in it. I went through like most of that trailer. I was like, I could have sworn someone said Halle Berry was in there, even though I got really excited when I saw, who was it? Ian McShane. And I was like, oh, this is going to be good. They put Ian McShane in there. And a little bit more other notable faces. Then I was like, but I thought Halle Berry was going to be in this. Then she shows up with her Doberman pictures. I was like, all right, then. Okay, y'all sold me on this. So enough other TV talk. Let's get into this episode. We start off 90 days ago. Luke is in a field. No, that's where we started, where he was in the AA meeting, was 90 days ago. The episode opens with Luke in a field looking at his monster picture, talking about, no one believes me. Of course no one believes you, because you're talking to a fake person. This is when we see that he's been talking to Abigail in his free time, which we've kind of known that he has, but he's telling her how he got snatched up and how I thought Theo believed him. Can't say nobody believed you. Maybe this was in the immediate afterwards. And then we get to 90 days ago in an AA meeting, where we open with this blind man talking about how he's been through the war, how his problem started there, trying to get over this PTSD, because he's talking about how he became fixated on this little girl who had her body charred and her eyes were, I guess, blinded out, or I don't know. They melted from the fire, right? And this is when he's in Afghanistan. We find out his name is Gordon. I don't think we're going to be following up too much with him, but he basically, when he got back to the States, he could not evade this. And I like the way they kind of tied this in, Gordon's story, because at first I didn't see where the point of this was, but it really does relate to Luke and what spurs him to take drugs. Is he's facing this PTSD from his childhood, this past trauma, and he keeps seeing the same thing, which is this bowler hat man again and again and again. And despite what he's trying to do, despite him taking the pills and whatever he took, heroin, they didn't say what he took, you know, he can't evade this consistent thing that's haunting him. So I do like how they tied that into Gordon's story, and how one day when he was high, he took a needle and blinded himself, and I was like, damn. He thought it was a good idea at the time because it would get rid of the image, but now that he's in the dark alone, he's tormented with that image consistently despite being 2 months clean. And he said that's why he's here. We see Paige look around at the newbies and be like, so this was kind of like in the beginning, right? When Luke and Joey first met. So I'm guessing they got to rehab at the same time. And I didn't get that the first time around that I watched it. So it's kind of just coming to me that this was when they first met. She calls on Luke to, you know, tell us why you're here. And he's like, how am I going to follow that? So I love that we see that Luke has a personality that's a little charming. But you can tell he's very stuck in his childhood. That's why I was really off with when we got the 2 days ago flashback. I was like, I'm very confused. When he was talking about how he was 90 days sober. So it was at the beginning scene we're seeing when they first meet. And then we flash back to 2 days ago to the present time when we find out that Nellie is dead. He is actually getting his 90-day sober chip. And he's up in front of his AA meeting, and he's starting to give his speech about what it feels to make it to this milestone. We get another flashback to Luke up in his tree house, and he's setting his soldiers up around the boogeyman drawing that he has. He's still talking to his dad about it, and you know, his dad's pretty much not believing him. He tells his dad, like, look, this house is bad. I'm not imagining shit, despite you and mom and everybody else keep telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about. However, mom comes down the steps, Livia, and she's got a box of things that she wants to sell in a yard sale. She sees that Nellie has been hiding. And she's like, well, I guess I don't know where Nellie is. And she comes out of hiding just to get this. What the hell was that? I feel like that's going to come into play, the little box that she gave her with the 7 rocks in it. I don't know what that's about. But she gives that to Nellie, and Luke is enchanted by the bowler hat. And he wants it, but his dad says, well, no, you can't get that because it's too big for you. And I'm like, but what? That's the whole point. It's not like he's about to roll around outside with this hat on his head, you know, out in public. I mean, I didn't see why he told him he couldn't have it. But or at least the mom said he couldn't have it. But then the dad says, well, hey, guess what? I'll give this hat to you if big boys don't cry, basically. Like, agree that I'll give you this hat if you agree that you're not really having these, what do you want to call that? He thinks that he's giving make-believe friends to these things that he's seen. And as soon as he puts the hat on, Nellie says that he likes it. And he says, well, how do you know? He's like, well, I know what he's feeling. So it's their twin thing that we continue to see throughout the whole episode, is that he and his twin are kind of psychologically linked, but to the point where they can feel what the other person is feeling, even across great distances. We get a scene alone with Olivia and her husband, and she's talking about how she's having deja vu. So is she some type of seer? Because he asks, well, what do you see? And she gets really hella specific on some of the details. She says there's 3 kids. One is up in a wheelchair. There's case goods, leather, a grandma, 2 parents. And the dad says, well, damn, shit. And she's like, well, you know, this is kind of what I see. But we see some ropes on the stairs, and she says, well, I can tell you right now, if you don't clean that up, that we're going to see bodies swinging. So is that a foreshadowing? Is that something that we need, that happened to Nellie? Did someone hang her? Is that what happened? because something happened with her neck breaking, but we don't know how it broke. And I'm guessing they think that she hung herself, but this felt like foreshadowing to me for what happens to Nellie. We go back to the halfway house. Luke and Joey are sharing a cigarette in room 209. I didn't know if that meant anything. I just wrote down the room number. Luke is accounting, writing his list, because after 90 days, you're supposed to make your list of amends, because you're supposed to make amends. That's the thing with rehab. It's the thing that I think the family members are struggling with, because when you get sober, you can't show up at a family member's house and be like, hey, I'm sober. Hey, celebrate with me. When you make amends, you have to really prove that you are sober and sorry for your past actions. And he's accounting his sins to Joey that, hey, I basically got all the money I possibly could from my sister Shirley, like it was a con, like I drained her. I knew I was playing on her. I broke my sister Nellie's heart. I stole from Steve. I even robbed my dad. However, I'm not as sorry for that. Joey is a little bit further on the ladder than he is, because she has been sober for 9 months. So we find out that Steve actually, which I thought in the last few episodes that he was lying, saying that Luke was still in rehab, and it turns out he wasn't lying. That was just him being surprised as fuck that Luke was still in rehab, and that he has been keeping his sobriety a secret from the family, because he's like, well, no one will believe me. So like the boy who cries wolf. You can only cry it so many times before no one else has that empathy for you. We find out that Nellie is the one that actually got him in this time. So this is not when Shirley got him in that fancy ass facility. This is something Nellie found him on the streets and got him into this facility. He lights out is at 10. Damn, shit. That's a pretty decent bedtime though. What the hell else they doing? So then it's 3 a.m. No, stop. 4 a.m. No, stop. It's 12:03 a.m. in the morning, and he wakes up because he got his neck snapped, because he knows his sister got his neck snapped. But she's right there in front of him, looking a hella lot like the mom. Y'all notice that? And she says, go. He takes this as inspiration that he needs to go after his friend Joey the next day. And we get another flashback, however, after she says go, to Nellie and Luke. They are throwing coins as little kids to each other through the horn that they found in episode 3 with Theo. And the third coin does not go through. They're like, what the hell is happening with it? And then all of a sudden it chokes out. And you hear this eerie ghost sound saying something I didn't put on the subtitles to figure it out. Nellie is like, you scared? And he's like, I ain't scared. I'm gonna show you I ain't scared. The little kids playing them is just so good. So good. He goes up and he investigates, and he's like, see, I told you, this is Theo. She did something. And just as he thinks he's got his balls back, he sees creepy grandma in the horn and runs like crazy, even though he has the slowest run. He's like, look, I gotta be careful on these steps. I'm not about to fall down and bust my ass. The next day at rehab, we find out that Joey has left. She put a note under Luke's bed. Now, how shady was Joey? When did she start her plan of when she was going to just be shady as all get out? Because she's hanging out with Luke, and he's all talking about how he's gotten his family for money, and apparently she doesn't have family. And it feels like she was running a long con, or maybe she just was so happy he came after her. I don't know, because he knew that something was up with her, but she ends up leaving. Paige is in group saying, hey, I know this is basically affecting morale. This is what happens when you don't do the program, and it's a shame. And I love how the whole group just side-eye the hell out of Luke. Like, you know, some people are going to have a harder time dealing with this than others. And the one guy was like, yeah, some people. And that redhead was just looking at him. She was entirely too invested in his love life. It was just like, Luke's lost his girlfriend. And Paige brings up that this is why it's important to not have any relationships within the first year. And Luke says, we're not in a relationship, we're a friendship. And I think he actually thought that, because I think he thought he was helping his sister. I don't know how he necessarily felt about Joey, but it did not feel like he was having sexual feelings for her. It felt very much like, this is someone who believes me, and it's the only person that's believed me. But I don't believe that, because I'm totally shipping him and Paige. I feel like she believes in him a lot more, despite her, you know, much more tougher approach. I felt like she was the one to watch in this episode as for who genuinely cares about Luke's sobriety. To me, it was Paige, and we find out that she's his caseworker. And Paige, Luke declines the fact that they have a relationship, like I said, and she says, still getting close to someone in recovery, you share all these things with them, you get extra bonded, and then sometimes your recovery hangs on someone else. Luke doesn't take that well, and he's like, I just need some air. And he walks out of group. However, as he goes in his room, he's staring at the note. We don't see what it says, but it did say, don't follow me. And it's at this moment where we're like, okay, don't follow me. I'm not into this. Y'all go this way. I don't know. I just got really bad deja vu right now. I don't know why. That is so weird that deja vu was brought up in this episode, and now I am having it. Oh, that is really creepy. But I'm literally recalling as something like I've recorded this before, and the vividness I'm getting is that my daughter is with her cousins in the bedroom, and I'm really surprised that they have allowed me to do this recording. I don't know what truth it is, because my mom is on the way with my cousins. They haven't showed up yet, or my little nephews, I should say. It's my daughter's cousins, and they're going sledding, and it's just weird. I don't know. I just had like a really weird moment of deja vu. And this girl has her new shirt on, and I need to address this. BRB. Anyways, new clothes for school. Back to Luke and him not choosing to follow Joey. That's exactly what he does. Paige comes and finds the note like, damn, boy. And he calls Nellie from a payphone. He says, I had a moment, you know, that moment that we have, because it's a twin thing. And he keeps rubbing his neck. So he's been feeling the aftermath of Nellie's death this entire episode. Luke has some really pretty eyes. It's just an observation as he's staking out this playground or area, I don't know, but it's clearly where you go to buy drugs, because the drug man is right there, and he sees a bowler hat man. We don't know who the hell this man is, never identified at the end of this episode, so really interested to see who the hell this is. Then this very malnourished but pristine white dog starts barking at him. And I was like, okay. We get another flashback where Luke wakes up as a kid, and he's hearing the dogs barking despite no one knowing where these dogs come from. He hears some thumping, and he slowly but gradually begins to investigate it. As he opens the door and he sees that freaking large ass floating man with the cane, I was like, oh no, I don't need these type of imageries in my brain. They creep me the hell out, and I didn't like it. Even though it was kind of cool, I just did not like it. The guy looks like he's looking for something, right? Because he opens the door, and I thought he opened it for Luke, like, hey, come up in here. And Luke, ever so casually, closes his bedroom door, walks back in, tries not to freak out, even though I would be A, screaming, 2, waking up my sister. I don't care if you need sleep. I need sleep too. And he crawls underneath his bed. And it's only when this creepy dude comes in his room and stops by his bed with his cane that he decides to start screaming. We go back to the present, and we find out that he's been stalking Joey's drug dealer in particular, because she rolls up to buy some crack or whatever he's selling. And as soon as they eyed each other, the first thing I thought was, oh, they about to get high and fuck. But to my surprise, that is not what Luke is trying to do. He's just trying to save this person because he feels like she has had saved him. And he does call Paige, his caseworker, and he's like, look, I found her. Just let us come back. I didn't get high or anything like that. And she has to drop the truth on him. Like, unfortunately, there's too little beds and too many people that need help. When you leave, you lose your spot. And unfortunately, she's lost her spot. And did he lose his spot? I didn't feel like he lost his spot. I feel like at 10 p.m. he lost his spot. But this all felt like the same day. And he's begging her to come back. And she's like, fuck, Luke, I can't do it. Like, she really wants to help him, but she can't help him out. And once you lose your spot, there's nothing she can do for him. Joey does acknowledge that Paige is right. Like, I knew what I did when I did it. I asked you not to come for me, but I am ever so happy that you did. She's gushing about this the whole entire time. You came for me. Oh, she's playing the hell out of him. That you came for me. She's already dipped into the whatever Kool-Aid that makes her happy. And Luke thinks that they can still go back, but we just need to, make it through the night. You need somewhere safe to come down. He promises to help her because you helped me. And I was like, oh Lord, we know how this is going to go. However, I was still optimistic because Luke was optimistic. And I love the fact that Luke, despite all of what he went through this night, came out of it without picking up drugs. And I think there's something to be said about that. He asked her, do you have anything left? I thought he was asking for drugs, and it turns out he was asking for money. She gives him a $10 bill, and he's like, well, that will get us most of the way. They take a cab. I thought they were going to Shirley's house. However, they go to Steve's house, and he thinks on the way there, as they're walking up to his house, that it was Nellie that told him to chase Joey, because she's still gushing over the fact that he came after her. And he's like, some people, no one's ever believed me. You've believed me. You got me through getting sober. Now I want to help you. And Joey says that, or Luke says that Joey reminds him of Nellie, and you two would have a lot in common. And I think that, and the fact that they are both dark-haired women, I think he was okay with the kiss, but he just was like, what's happening? I don't know. I don't even know how to feel about this. I don't have the capacity to process this right now. We go to the door and we realize we're at Lee's, which is Steve's ex. She tells him that Steve don't live here no more. And she rejects him because he keeps looking off in the distance. We see, I didn't realize at that moment that she had met Joey before, because she's like, she always knows. So that's why I thought they were going to Shirley's. However, no, Lee apparently knows when he's high all the time too. And she's like, well, you look good. I'm glad you look great. But you know the deal. I can't help you. I can't give you money. I can't let you in to stay the night. However, he does ask where Steve is. And she gives up that information. We flash back again 2 months ago, where apparently Joey and Luke on a day pass came out to have dinner with Lee and Steve. It was at this moment I was starting to get the picture of Joey. She's very articulate. She seems to have an answer for everything. She can spin it all. She's very transparent about the fact that she needs help and she has problems. And there's something that you can draw to that, but despite her knowing it all, she has a choice to make, and she makes that choice. And you see that at the end of this episode, that she wants to be out in them streets. Whatever she's going through, it's not, you can't put your sobriety on another addict, as Paige so aptly puts it. So Miss Joey is working the room, and Lee's eating it up. Steve looks he looks like okay, whatever you saying, chick. That meat that they had on their plates was bloody as hell. That's not, I get it, it's fake food probably, but wow, attention to detail. For some reason I was like, that is some red ass meat. Joey is trying to put Steve in his place because he's basically bitter, and he's like, you know what the definition of insanity is? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I kind of got where she was coming from on that aspect of it. Like, okay, I get what you're saying. However, being out in the streets is insanity. At least I'm trying, and yeah, it may be repetitive, but what else am I supposed to do? I have more support this time. That's why this is different than the last time. But basically, only an addict will understand this struggle, and I get that. And I love that they put Luke says a little bit later, you know, I don't know how my family feels about what I've done to them. Like, I can't expect them to forgive me for what I've put them through and what I've done to them. And I'll never know what it feels like being in their shoes. And I hope I never will have to feel that way. So there's some acknowledgement that despite some of these family members in particular feeling like assholes, they have had to build up this wall to protect themselves from the fact that they have an addict as a brother who has unfortunately taken advantage of them in the past. And there comes a point where you have to draw a line. And I know it's hard to draw that line, especially when someone is begging you for assistance, for help, for something as simple as let me sleep on your floor. However, when you wake up and everything you have that you've worked so hard for is gone, or furthermore, you know, that leads to them never leaving and bringing people over, getting high in your place, and now you're stuck with them, and now, you know, they want that warm bed. There's nothing to say that addicts don't want to be comfortable. But once they get in, it's hard to not let them continue to take advantage of you. So I totally get where Steve is coming from, and I think he can see Joey a little bit more clear. Like, hey, I love you, and I love their conversation in the kitchen. Like, you know, she's smart, she's articulate. I get why you like her. She's charming. However, you know, be careful. And I think that's all he was trying to say. Even though Luke got a little, you know, testy about it, you know, I just got 30 days sober. You can be a little bit more supportive. Yeah, but at the same time, you have to earn that support. You have to kind of earn that. I don't feel like after 30 days, like, yes, he invited you into his home. You know, he fed you dinner. I think that's a lot further than what some other people would do for you. Like, you know, Shirley. I don't know if Shirley's letting you up in her house anymore. But, you know, he's like, look, I don't have a thing for her. I just admire her. And Steve is like, well, she's basically a little manipulative and you need to watch yourself. And like I said, I'm totally on Steve's side. But I do point out the fact that Luke says, well, you know, she was with me during withdrawal. You don't even know what that feels like. You don't know what that looks like. You've never been through withdrawal with me, apparently. So, Steve, you can't. Your opinion means something, but you're also talking from a perspective that doesn't necessarily understand what I'm going through. Steve says that he's basically ran out of chances on him, so he's just not really willing to give someone else another chance. Steve was looking fine as hell in that blue cardigan that he had on. Just more Steve. I don't care that he's a douche. He's so fine. And Lee is not even, fuck you, Lee. I don't know what happened between them, but I'm pretty sure it has to do with kids. Because did you see her face when he was like, well, what do you do after you get all this success in this beautiful house? And wait, did y'all see at the table where she's like, well, yeah, Luke writes too about how he had this imaginary friend. He's like, it's just an essay. And Steve was like, well, yeah, I'm sure. Just an essay. He's like, I've heard the stories. I've written a book based on our hauntings, and that was hilarious to me. But she says something about the kids, and they definitely have a look like, Steve's like, I don't want kids. Steve looked like the kind of man that's like, I don't fucking want kids. Like, are you kidding me? I'm not passing the curse on to my next generation. Luke breaks into Steve's place after he tells him to fuck off in the flashback. In the present day, he starts to rob him because Lee obviously gave him the address, and that's where we get the scene of Steve confronting him saying, hey, I need my iPad. I'll give you $200 for that, but you can go ahead and pawn the rest of the shit because clearly you need help right now. He's like, are you cold? And he said it was freezing in Steve's apartment, but he's been freezing for a minute, and he thinks it's withdrawal. That's what I thought too. I was like, oh shit, he's going through withdrawal. And it didn't dawn on me until the end of the episode that no, he has been feeling his dead sister, or what his sister is feeling being dead this entire episode, which is really, really creepy. And I'm sure with the family knowing they have that close connection, that's probably why Steve is like, oh damn, when he tells him later that, hey, I'm freezing, but it's not withdrawal cold, it's something else. And this is the episode that played out in episode 1 when Steve busted him. Luke is just trying to get this shit because he needs to pawn this so they can have enough money to get into a hotel. But guess what? They got the $200. Did he leave all the rest of the stuff? I think he did. And all he had wanted was the money to get into a hotel so that they think if they get off the streets for this one night, they can get back into another rehab the next day. They're really just trying, at least Luke is trying to make it through this day. And I felt so bad for him, especially when he got the money, because I thought again, I felt really bad because I feel like Steve in this moment, I immediately thought the same thing. You're just trying to get high, you've given up. And we find out he's not really giving up. He's still fighting to get this chick sober, and she stops by, they're walking down, and that's when Joey really started feeling shady to me. When she says, oh, I just want to pop in this alley for a pee. I'm like, you just passed several places where they have actual operational bathrooms, which I'm pretty sure they're going to let you use, but you want to go down an alley. And then she starts to look at him, and I saw her face too when he showed her the $200. Her eyes lit up like she just hit Christmas, like she just hit the jackpot. And she's still gushing over him, and she leans in for a kiss. And again, this is when you know that he's not had these sexual feelings for her, because he's like, what are you doing? He's like against it because he probably wants that connection, but at the same time, it's not something that he was looking forward to, or even doesn't even know how he feels about it. Because when she goes in for the kiss, he don't move. He just standing there all types of, stiff. And I knew something was off when she called him baby. I'm like, oh, now he's baby? Like, when did that happen? And that's when we find out that she stole the money out of his back pocket and dipped down the alleyway and left him. I was like, damn, that's some cold-blooded crap. He starts chasing after her, but he realizes it's a dead end. He's cold, so he goes back to, a homeless alley where everyone sits. Do they really do that? They probably do. They build fires in old barrels so that they can stay warm. And he starts seeing the bowler hat man, who is now officially haunting him. We go back to his 90-day meeting, which I thought was a weird transition. They've pretty much been spot on this entire series thus far. I felt them a little janky in this episode. But he's going back, we go back to his 90-day meeting where he's giving his speech. He says it's been 10 years since he's been clean. This long, meaning 6 months. He stated that he never really recovered from his mom's suicide. I was too young when this happened. We went to our aunt's, and for the longest, I thought every time I would see the lights show up on a car that it would be my mom. But it wasn't, and I've had to deal with that feeling for the longest time, and that's part of what led to me taking drugs. But it actually wasn't just losing my mom. It was the other things that were continuing to haunt me that made me want to take drugs to get rid of. And then we flash back to the present, and these random ass dudes just pop up out of nowhere and jump him and rob him for his coat and his shoes. Poor baby. He is still being stalked by the bowler hat man. Ooh, it was so creepy when he was like on the sidewalk and he was counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And he just keeps following him. I like the effect because it was unlike the first time, it was not nearly as scary to me. And he calls Paige, he says at the meeting, because we're going back and forth between the two scenes. That's why I didn't like it. It was very wonky, but that's when we find out that Paige was his caseworker and that he wants to thank other people for supporting him. He's clearly meaning Joey. And it was probably the happiest moment he's been in a long time in his life. And now he's kind of at his lowest moment. He was in rehab. He was on the right path. Now he's out of rehab. He's alone. He's on the streets. He's going through withdrawal, not to mention dealing with his sister's death that he doesn't even know that's weighing on him. And he's counting 1 through 7 and didn't know why, but he's walking up and down the street counting that. And he eventually calls Paige from the payphone, and he's like, look, I know I fucked up. I just need a bed, a couch, a floor, anything you can give me to help right now. I did not use. I need help. I need you to come get me. Steve is there. Steve! He is actually with Paige, and probably to tell him, looking for his brother to tell him that his sister has died. And Paige caves in, and she says, where are you at? I will come get you. We've been waiting for you to come back, actually. And we get a flashback of Nellie and Luke. Nellie's crying, and I love the question, like, why are you up? 'Cause you up. I can't hear you crying over there, obviously. And they're both in the same boat. Like, hey, mommy and daddy, and no one believes me about the bent neck lady. And he's like, I believe you. And he pulls out that box that the mom gave Nellie with the 7 little rocks in there, and he says, hey, we need to count to 7. It helps keep the ward off the fear, and it keeps you safe because it's how many members that's in our family. It has to be 7. So is that connected back to something? I don't know, but that's where he gets the 1 through 7 countdown that he's been doing on the sidewalk in the present day. He teaches it to Nellie. Don't know if it helped her later in life. However, the bowler hat man really, and I was like, oh, I was starting to get dread at this point, because at that, now I've seen his struggle. I really did not want something bad to happen to him, and it kind of felt like something bad was going to happen to him the entire episode. Like, oh, don't kill Luke too, damn. But just as he turns around to confront this bowler hat that's been chasing him, it actually is his mom. And as she opens her eyes, this light comes through, and she says, come home, my love. And then one of the transitions that do work, it's the headlights, and Paige rolls up with Steve. He runs to hug Steve. He's trembling. He's terrified. He could barely get his broken dialogue off, but he's telling him that, hey, I tried to save her, meaning Joey. And he tells him that I'm feeling really cold, but not like withdrawal. He's been massaging his neck the entire episode. And that's when Steve lets him know that, hey, Nell is dead. And despite his moment of, like, shock, he still takes a moment to take it in. Like, wait, hold on. How? And, I hate when he said his bones are stiff and cold, because I was like, oh, damn. Because she dead. And Steve's like, it was a suicide. And he touches his neck once again, and he kind of just shakes his head, and he's like, who was it? And that's how the episode ends, indicating that, nah, Nellie was murdered, the way he feels it. So, like I said, it was a necessary episode, because now we get to see where Luke is at. However, it was not the strongest of the 4. I've heard nothing but good things for episode 5. Hopefully it doesn't take me as long to get back into it. But hopefully that's the turning point of the 10 episodes. So something probably big is going to pop up where we're going to get a little bit more answers into what's going on with this particular family in this haunted house. We got some of who lived there prior. We know there was 3 kids. We've only seen 1, which is Abigail. What happened to them? What's this story? We didn't see any of the housekeepers this episode, so I don't know where the story can go, but I'm really still interested in where it can lead. If you want to find my podcast, you can find it on iTunes, Spotify, and Podbean at Black Girl Couch Reviews. My social medias, Twitter is ChristinaJ16831. My Tumblr is Slowly Androgynous Miracle. If you want to send feedback on this series, you can send that at blackgirlcouch@gmail.com. It's been real peace, guys. Oh, what am I doing next? I think I'm doing Preacher next, and then I will do Star Trek Discovery, and then I'll do The Expanse. That's my plans this weekend. Let's all cross our fingers that I get through all of them. I've been trying to get it on time. I'm working on it. But like I said, y'all know how it is, single mama. And every 5 seconds, I feel like I've had kids being dropped on me. Just, hey, take the cousins. I'm like, sure, why not? So, it's been real. See you soon. Peace.